This is a questionable reality production. Hello, I'm Xander Crowns, and this is AP Post History. Now let's get started. Today we'll be covering topic 1.4, Pre-Apocalyptic Society and Space. Space is a fixture of society's imagination and wonder, with civilization looking up to the stars since time immemorial. And pre-apocalyptic society should be noted for having a robust and lively space colonies on the Mars and the Moon. Or, as they are known during the year $?37, Red Guam and pot-marked Puerto Rico in space, respectively. At the same time, the United States was fielding intensive investigative efforts into the rest of the solar system. Now, these colonies had quite significant differences from each other. We will begin with Mars, which I'm going to refer to as Guam or Red Guam in the accurate pre-apocalyptic terms from now on. Guam was settled 200 or so years from our starting point, and developed to be a giant, kitschy tourist trap. You see, the Martians knew that Guam carried a certain interstellar allure to it, and sought to make as much money as humanly possible from this allure. You could buy Martian soil samples, go rover spotting, visit the largest publication of the Martian Chronicles, if you're into that, ski down Mount Olympus, and so on, and so much more. Anything you could possibly do on Guam and that a Martian label could be stuck on, you should better expect that the Martians did do it, and furthermore, made a lot of money off of doing it. About 87% of Guam's economy was based in tourism. Marriott even moved its headquarters to Martian lands, the Marriott on Mars. Could you believe it? This was such a capitalist excess that anything special and cool about Guam was oversaturated and rather quite cheap. Nonetheless, people still vacationed in ever larger masses to the Martian colonies in excess. About 65% of Guam's population was comprised of temporary tourists at any one time. The Martians farther accentuated and exaggerated their oddity for more and more dollars. Beyond this, Red Guam did have some redeeming, less overtly excessive quality. Red Guam was the leading research in space travel and a mecca of space tech. However, it may be curious to note that somehow, coincidentally, all of these industries somehow supported tourism in the Martian colony, which I'm sure you could assume why. But nonetheless, Guam was the site of a scientific golden age. Plasma engines, macrochips, and Nike's premium spacewear all trace their origins back to the little red planet. Guam's culture was largely a mirror of the USA with a slight Martian twinge. Imagine an American cupcake with a few little Martian sprinkles put on, but with the magnifying glass put on those sprinkles to make it seem more weirder and sellable. This occurred because the colony was so intergalactically connected with its blue neighbor that there was no major and pronounced shift in culture between the two. Thus, Guam experienced no cultural and social disconnection from its colonial motherland, as we so often assume in other human examples of colonization. So, Guam would be a happy colony, and was quite devastated when the apocalypse took Earth away. The Moon, otherwise known as pot-marked Space Puerto Rico, was a much different story. Puerto Rico was a much older space colony and was far more developed than Red Guam ever was during these times. However, unlike the settling of Red Guam, a large degree of salutary neglect arose between the United States of America and pot-marked Puerto Rico in space. Thus, Puerto Rico was infested by nationalistic and separatist movements that sought to remove the control and influence of Earth and the U.S. away from the moon. In fact, they firmly and objected to the name of Puerto Rico, refusing to be named after some quasi-state territory the U.S. had hung on to for some last vestige of its empire. And in response to this name made in poor taste, the Lunarites maintained the moon's original name, the Lunar Dominion. Thus, cultural influence from Earth were decidedly rejected, and a new, unique lunar society was developing based on an anti-Earth-centric view. The Lunar Dominion would soon find itself under the leadership of the fiery and charismatic General Domo Zetleger, born upon the rough and tumble Marie Tranquilitas. Even though lunar separatism had existed for a long time, with some even alleging that Niels Armstrong held some sympathetic sentiments himself, General Zetleger really made it his own, even narrowly failing to pass a referendum for independence, which of course, as these referendums tend to go, was believed to be tampered by the U.S. to prevent secession. As the head of the Lunar Dominion, General Zetleger ensured to propagate a strong military culture, advocate for isolation and self-sufficiency, while being the emphatic poster boy of all-around lunar pride. Now, to get a proper feel of the lunar separatist movement, let's go to today's History Makers segment, with General Domo's address to the United States Lunar Commission, which he broke into after the separatists were barred from participation. The moon is not for earthly hands. It is a celestial body, markedly separate from the dirt of its Terranian neighbor. And such a separation, I say, was intentional. And though we inhabitants of the moon have our roots in that rotten world, we are so firmly different, so firmly divulged, that we have evolved into an altogether different and superior species of people, necessitating our own superior form of governance. Earth's sentiments and ideals have no place in governing somewhere as dramatically different as the moon. And so I say, Earthlings, go home. You have no place upon this lunar dominion. The moon is free, and it always was. The moon must be kept free from earthly hands. I think you guys have the idea now. And that's it. Topic 4 of Unit 1 is complete. If you want to find success in your post-history class and want to keep the moon free from earthly hands, consider subscribing and liking to this video. My goal is to see each and every one of you get a 92 in your class and a 7 on the AP test in Quintober. Alright, Xander Crowns, checking out.